What's going on, guys? Welcome to this training on minimum effective dose. I am super excited to bring you this training because I think it's going to really help you plan out your strength conditioning properly for MMA or whatever combat sport you might be doing. So, before we dive in, a little bit about myself. I'm a former wrestler. I currently compete in jiu-jitsu, and I do have some MMA training experience, although I've never had a fight. I also have my bachelor's and master's in exercise and sport science. And prior to starting the Fighters Performance Institute, I worked as a collegiate strength conditioning coach for 5 years, from the Division One level all the way down to NAIA and everything in between. So, what are we actually going to talk about today? First of all, what is minimum effective dose? What is stress and what is its role on the body? What a typical training week might look like, and troubleshooting your training week. So, minimum effective dose is a really simple term. Actually, it's the least amount of work we can put in to achieve the optimal result. So, let's say I can either work out 3 days or 4 days and get the same result. Minimum effective dose in mind, I'm going to pick the 3 days because I'm getting pretty much the same result. So, it's finding the minimum amount of work that we can do to still get the result that we want. So now let's talk about stress. So stress in the body is systemic, and what that means is the body doesn't know the difference between good and bad stress. There's no such thing. So whether your girlfriend just dumped you or you had a really hard session in the gym, your body produces the same hormones, which generally we're talking about cortisol. So the goal is to induce stress in productive ways without overdoing it. So drilling, rolling, lifting, conditioning, those are all productive ways to induce stress, but more is not always better. So if we have excess stress in the short term, which is generally like 1 week or less, we call this overreaching, and it can cause good adaptation if we rest properly afterwards. But when this is prolonged more than a week, it causes negative effects on the body, and we call this overtraining. So excess stress leads to really a lot of crappy things. So catabolism, which is just breakdown of the muscle, reduced brain function, reduced energy, strength, power, higher fat retention, so it's harder for you to make weight, and your decreased immune system. So if you're sick all the time, this might be something to look into. So it can be tough to find the right amount of training, but these are some good guidelines to get you started. So number one, no more than 2 training sessions a day, and ideally less than 4 hours total. And when I say training sessions, I mean everything: lifting, conditioning, sparring, technique work, whatever it may be. Ideally less than 4 hours a day, no more than 2 separate sessions. Then we have no more than 12 training sessions per week. So 2 sessions a day, 7 days a week is too much, in my opinion. And then next we have save hard rolling or sparring for 1 to 2 days a week, just because, going back to the immune system thing, your body can only handle so much. And the hard rolling and sparring is a lot of stress. That doesn't mean to say you can't flow roll or roll super light every day, but usually people aren't very good at holding themselves back once they get into a roll. So next is increase calorie intake if you increase your training volume. So this is one that people definitely neglect pretty often, but unless you're on a weight cut and you are increasing your training volume, if you want to keep performing optimally and keep training optimally, you need to increase your calorie intake if your training volume also increases. And then last, if you're sleeping less than 8 hours a night, 1 training session a day is probably enough, and 4 to 5 sessions per week is most likely all that you can handle to perform optimally. Yes, of course, you could sleep 2 hours a night and go out and do 3 training sessions a day, but you're definitely not going to perform optimally, and you are much more likely to get injured. So these are my guidelines to start with. Now, what would a typical training look like for a fighter? If you were working with me, this is what it might look like. So you lift and do your jiu-jitsu on Monday, but I mean, that could be striking, it could be MMA, it could be whatever. This is just a rough guideline. So 1 hour each, that's 2 hours total. Tuesday, you've got BJJ and striking, 1 to 2 hours each. Wednesday, just MMA. Thursday, lift and BJJ or striking. Friday, BJJ and striking, 1 to 2 hours each. Saturday you might have open mat, something like that, and then Sunday off, at least one day off. So you'll notice I only have 2 lift days a week in there, and I don't have any conditioning. Couple reasons for that. Number one, if you are striking consistently, that usually is a good stimulus for your conditioning. Now, it might not hit everything, but it's a good start if you are a beginner. And if you are a veteran, we'll probably have everything else dialed in with your training week that we can look at, okay, where do we need to add a conditioning session? And if we are going to add a conditioning session, what are we going to pull out? Because we can't just add more and more and more and more because, like I said, that's going to increase your stress to the moon. And then all of those bad things that we talked about might start happening. So this is a typical week. You'll notice that it's no more than 2 sessions per day, no more than 4 hours a day, and it's definitely less than 12 sessions a week. I think it is 10 sessions. So this can be changed. Let's say you're really weak, but your technique's awesome, and you need to build more strength. We might go lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then take 1 or 2 of those technique work sessions out. So it's a plug and play, it's a mix and match, it's a push and pull, but at the end of the day, roughly 12 sessions a week, 4 hours a day, 2 sessions a day is the max that we're doing. So as long as we stay within those guidelines, we're usually in good shape. Now, that being said, that's assuming that you're sleeping well, you're eating well, and you don't have crazy outside stressors going on, because like I said, stress is systemic. So now let's talk about how you actually troubleshoot it if you aren't feeling your best. So what I would recommend is you go through this checklist every few weeks or so, maybe once a month. So ask yourself these questions. Is my brain foggy during training? Am I off in la la land? Am I excited to go train, or does it feel like a chore? Am I just doing it because that's what champions do? Are you generally in a good mood throughout the day? Do you feel weak or fatigued more often than not? And if somebody asks you how you're doing, do you respond like tired or something like that? So this is a good way to check yourself, because if you're feeling super tired, if you're feeling run down, if your mood is crappy, then you might be not getting injured, you might be attending all your training sessions. However, you are probably not performing optimally, both from a mental and a physical standpoint. So you're probably not learning as fast as you might be, and your body is not adapting as quickly as it could be. So you should feel like you're at a 7 to 8 out of 10 most of the time. Now, it's going to be lower every now and then if you have your one hard roll day, and then the next day you feel a little beat up and you're at like a 5, totally fine. If you feel like you're at a 10 all the time, then you're probably not doing enough or not putting in enough intensity. But if you're at like a 3 or less every day, then you know you're doing too much and you need to dial something back. So that's really all I have for this training. I hope that you got a lot of value out of it. Once again, my name is Christian Chofi, and I'm the owner of the Fighters Performance Institute. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you ever have them. So if you're seeing this on YouTube or somewhere else, you can hit me up on Instagram at Christian J. Chofi. Feel free to ask me a question, and I'm happy to help. So thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.